There are more ways to wealth with Sharesies. Save with a great rate. Insure your car with no worries. Or join a KiwiSaver scheme with Real Choice. It's your wealth, your way. Do more with Sharesies.
15 years ago, my marriage ended. My whole world completely unravelled and I had to, reframe my future. Breaking up is expensive. Women typically are about at least 20% worse off. An end of a relationship can be the start of a new beginning. For me, it was a time of immense personal growth.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Garth Bray and we're doing things just a little differently for the next few weeks here on Shared Lunch. More Than Money is a special mini-series brought to you by Sharesies to help you get ready for 2025. The next one is a big one. We're speaking with Sarah Catherall, who's written the book How to Break Up Well, about surviving divorce and that experience, and January is the month where more than ever Kiwis make that big decision. What sort of impact does that have on your wealth? And how can you be ready for it? First, some important information to consider whenever investing.
The experiences shared in this episode are not advice or a recommendation or opinion by guests to invest or act in the manner they have. An appearance on this series is not an endorsement by Sharesies of the views of the presenters or guests. They're not financial experts and their views are their own.
Sarah, thanks for giving us some of your time. You went through quite a big thing in your own life and you've looked at that very closely to see, I guess, how it affects loads of people. What have you taken from that?
It's just to understand that divorce and separation is huge. Something like 1 in 4 kids live in a house with either one parent or they move between 2 homes in New Zealand. And a lot of families are headed by single parents and so on. So I was surprised actually how there is this huge community of people out there who aren't your typical nuclear mum, dad and 2 kids, but actually quite diverse family relationships.
And this was something that you went through yourself as well?
That's right. So 15 years ago, my marriage ended. It was his decision. And I was upended. I mean, we had our moments, for the year leading up to that. But it was such a shock. And so at the time I was working as an editor and I had 3 young children and my whole world completely unravelled and I had to, reframe my future. And at the time it was a shock. And as I said, I felt like a victim. But all these years later, I can say that was a good decision. We've co-parented well. We've raised our daughters are now 24, 21 and 18. And we've both repartnered. We're happy. We get on well. And we've made it work. And so that's part of my motivation, Garth, for writing the book, that I wanted to share what we did, a bit of a formula, really. I mean, I know there's a lot of high conflict breakups and so on, but there are some ways to break up well, as I outline in my book.
Yeah, How to Break Up Well, which is quite a confronting title because it sort of presumes that there's some kind of formula to this or some way to approach it. But I guess there are some great lessons for people that find themselves in that situation suddenly as well. Is that what this is designed to do also, to provide people that help that they might need when the situation is put upon them?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, there's the practical and the emotional side of a breakup. And how to break up well, I think, fundamentally, if you've got kids or even if you don't, behave like grown-ups. And there are ways to mitigate the stress and just to sort of almost design the next chapter of your life. End of a relationship can be the start of a new beginning. And often for me, it was a time of immense personal growth that I share that. And also my mistakes. I spent a bit too much time dating and with what I called sad dads and so on. And I was a bit of a sad mum. So I look
sad
back. Sad
dads? What's a sad dad? I want to know more.
Sad dads. Yeah, there's the people that haven't really got over their breakups and they look to you, as you're drinking your glass of Pinot Gris, they want some therapy rather than a date. So there was a bit of that went on. But yeah, just to share too that often it's great to stay single for a while. It's great to find your single self again. That we have a society that really celebrates culturally the idea of the couple, marriage, coupledom. And so, but something like 16% of women in New Zealand now, I'm not sure about the stats for men, sorry, but are single women households. And there are a lot of people out there who are saying, I choose this way. So how you navigate in a society that says we should be part of a couple, how you almost stand out and claim that space as well. So I write a bit about that as well.
If I think about a breakup, I imagine it's a huge financial inflection point, right? What I mean is the ground shifts massively. You've got assets that you might share that are ripped apart that you've got to liquidate long before you ever thought you were going to have to. You've got extra costs that are coming in there. It must be a very potentially destabilising thing to go through.
Absolutely. And breaking up is expensive. I mean, you've got the costs of actually, as you say, if you get a lawyer, 2/3 of couples do, you have to pay your legal fees. Then typically today, we still have what's known as the motherhood penalty. So the mother might have taken time out, been working part-time or not working at all. And so you've had this quite disparate economic situation. And then mum, 2/3 times, mum gets left primarily with the kids. She's cost of running two houses. I mean, we have a cost of living crisis, two potentially mortgages, rent, two phone bills, whatever, it goes on. So it's expensive. And in fact, interestingly, there's a new term called bird nesting where couples break up, but they stay in the same house.
That sounds fraught. I'm going to jump in and say bird nesting. Tell me more, though.
They keep the family home, and they fly in and out. So they take turns with the kids, and one of them goes off to a flat or staying with mates or whatever. So yeah, it's expensive to run two houses. It's interesting, Garth, because often in a house, like the guy might mow the lawns and be in charge of paying the mortgage repayments or whatever, and managing the accounts, and it's the woman that's like, oh, Johnny's going to school camp and filling in forms. So these roles can become quite demarcated. And for me, I remember just thinking, gosh, I've suddenly got to manage not only the kids, but these other roles that used to fall to him. So I think it can be like learning a bit of a new language for some people. It's not always the woman that's been in that role of not being involved, but it can be, it just can be for practical reasons as well.
So it can be a point where you're not only trying to seek economic empowerment, you're actually kind of forced to grapple with it yourself because you're running your own life, your own business, your own affairs, in a way that perhaps wasn't the case.
In my book, I refer to a couple of women their names weren't even on the properties, and they were having to try and get a house valued, and it was like, well, sorry, you don't own the house, your ex does. And so, there's a lot that you don't when you're in a relationship, which is part of my mission, Garth, is to actually try and empower or educate women in relationships as well, because often you don't know that you don't have as much economic power in a relationship, or even an understanding of where the money is and what's happening where, and do you know what you own? Is your name on the property title, on the bank account, that kind of thing?
I'm thinking if you're in a position where you're faced by this kind of situation of divorce, and you're suddenly having to sell things up and so on and break things apart, that must have not just an immediate cost, but it's got a wealth effect as well. It must change perhaps how wealthy a person you will turn out to be unless you make some other changes. What are the kind of the wealth effects of separation?
Huge. Women typically are about at least 20% worse off after a breakup. And so it's a shock. It can be a absolute financial shock. And I think that there's also scenarios where you can end up inheriting his debt. So, which is why I'm quite hot on the idea of a prenup as well. Basically, under current relationship law, if you've been with someone for 3 years and living in a house together, then unless what you bring into that relationship yourself is got to be, you've got to sort of say, that's mine. You've got to ring fence it. And that includes student debt or whatever debt that person brings in. So if you break up, you could inherit their $100,000 student loan as well. So it's an interesting one to think, put it all on the table. What do you own, and what debts do you have?
So what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth to me is actually being healthy and happy. I had a little cancer scare last year, and I write about that in my book. And being healthy and happy is really, I mean, obviously I want to pay the bills and I want to go on a holiday or something like that. But fundamentally, I want to live a long, healthy life and with the people I love.
That's a great definition of wealth. Okay, so with all of the experience that you've had that you've put in this book, How to Break Up Well, what's a really great financial decision that you feel you've made?
This painting behind me. See, I don't know if you can see the road. It's a Karl Morn. So basically, after my marriage ended, I had a little bit of money left and over, and after we split everything. And I bought this artwork, and it was 14 years ago. And the road seemed to see, I was like, where's that path, the path to the unknown? It sort of felt like a metaphor for the next chapter of my life.
For those of us who are just listening rather than watching, there's a beautiful Karl Morn painting behind Sarah, which depicts some garden in full flower with a bright sunlit path that's leading you someplace, right?
Yeah, so I bought this artwork, and it cost quite a bit at the time, but it's been an investment. Every time I look at Karl Morn on the auctions, I'm like, oh, good one. But also, it's quite a symbolic piece of art to me, and so I have bought a bit of art over my time, and it's been symbolic for me. So my mother passed away from Alzheimer's, and I bought this beautiful artwork, and it arrived the day that she died. Like, I didn't know until that morning, and it came by courier 2 days early. I don't know. So if I have a little bit of money anywhere, I like to spend it on meaningful art, and also on taking my daughters on holiday. And my partner, I love nothing more than us doing a bit of travel and having experiences.
So you're investing in the now.
So investing in the now, Garth. I think that's the thing, like having this experience last year, it just came out of the blue, breast cancer, all totally fine now. I say life throws you curveballs, and came out of the blue. But what it did, it made me redefine my living in the now. Of course, you still want money put aside for your future and your retirement and so on. And in fact, any investment plan I have is for the long term. But in terms of my day-to-day, my terms of my life experiences, it's about celebrating while I'm healthy and well and mobile, just having had that experience. My mother was 61 when she got Alzheimer's, and she lived for 14 years with it. It was horrific. And then having been unwell myself, I'm aware of mortality, but not to be doomsday about it, but gives you a new perspective.
So I don't know if you're a New Year's resolution kind of a person, but if you were a taskmaster, if you're setting people a challenge for how to frame themselves up for success in 2025, and bearing in mind the experiences that you've had and what you write about, what do people need to think about over the holiday break?
I think this is relevant both for people within a relationship and out of a relationship. So for someone in a relationship, think about your economic power in that relationship. Is it equal? It might be that he's off earning or she's off earning and you're the one with the kids, or, you're running the emotional load of a household. But do you know where your money is? Do you know, is your name on the title? Is your name on the bank accounts? Do you have a kind of a mutual plan for wealth plan, creation plan, or saving plan? Understand what's where and when. One of the quotes I love in my book, Lady Deb Chambers, she's a marriage, she specialises in relationship and divorce law, and she says you might know the man you'll marry, but you don't know the man you'll divorce, or that sort of thing. So you've got to really understand. I'm not trying to be dooms and glooms because doom and gloom because it's the start of a new year, but think about what is where, and do you know everything? And for those also in a relationship, have you signed a prenup? Look, I know it's not particularly romantic to stare at someone when you're staring into someone's eyes to say, oh, we should sign a prenup, but it's really a great thing to do, and to say, this is mine, this is yours, this is ours. Understand. And it's a bit like signing an insurance contract, or paying your rates bills, or whatever you have to do. It's just a task. It's really, it's not easy to do. I understand that, but it's a great thing, and it protects both of you as long as it's both signed by both lawyers. It's a great thing to do.
Now that is going to be quite some summer conversation. Sarah Catherall, author of How to Break Up Well. Thank you very much for your time. And for those of you who are listening, thank you as well. You're probably listening on Apple or on Spotify. If you're watching us and you saw that beautiful painting behind Sarah, you'll be on YouTube. And if you like what you see, let us know, and let us know what you'd like to see. Thanks very much. That's us at Sharesies More Than Money Shared Lunch. Komentu.